Captain Lee Minho stepped carefully through the broken concrete and twisted metal that once formed the main street of New Talara City. His boots crunched on glass fragments that sparkled like deadly diamonds in the pale morning light. The air tasted of smoke and something else he could not name, something that made his throat burn. Behind him, Sergeant Park Ji-soo adjusted her medical scanner and frowned at the readings. The radiation levels were dropping but still dangerous for extended exposure. She had been a combat medic for 8 years and had seen plenty of destroyed worlds. This one felt different somehow, more personal. Corporal Kim Dae-ho brought up the rear, his eyes constantly moving between his tablet screen and the ruined buildings around them. His job was to find anything useful the Vector had left behind: technology, weapons, information about their next targets. So far, he had found only destruction. The 3 humans moved like ghosts through what had been home to 12 million Tellurians just 2 weeks ago. Now it was a graveyard of strange architecture and broken dreams. Minho raised his hand and the team stopped. He listened carefully. No sounds of movement, no signs of life. Just the wind whistling through holes where windows used to be and the distant rumble of fires still burning in the industrial district. "Command, this is Recon Team 7." Minho spoke into his COM device. "We are entering Sector 12. No enemy contact so far." The voice that answered was crisp and professional. "Copy that, Team 7. Remember your mission parameters. Intelligence gathering only. No unnecessary risks." "Understood, Control." Minho switched off the COM and looked at his team. "You heard them. We stick to the plan. 2 hours max, then we head back to the ship." Ji-soo nodded, but her eyes were troubled. As they walked deeper into the city, she could not stop thinking about what the intelligence reports had said about the Vector attack. Complete orbital bombardment followed by ground forces that eliminated any survivors. Standard procedure for the Vector Empire when they conquered a new world. The buildings around them told the story of a civilization that had valued beauty as much as function. Even destroyed, Minho could see the elegant curves and flowing lines that had once made this city something special. The Tellurians had been artists as well as engineers. Dae-ho paused at what looked like a school or learning center. Children's artwork still hung on walls that remained standing. Bright colors and simple drawings of families and strange animals that must have lived on this world. He quickly looked away and focused on his scanner readings. "Captain," he said quietly, "I am getting some interesting energy signatures from the government district. Looks like they had some advanced power systems. Might be worth checking out." Minho studied his map display. The government district was 6 blocks away through what looked like a residential area. The route would take them past hundreds of destroyed homes where families had lived their daily lives just days ago. "Lead the way, Corporal, but stay alert. The Vectors sometimes leave behind monitoring devices." As they moved through the residential streets, Ji-soo noticed something that made her uncomfortable. Unlike other worlds she had seen after Vector attacks, there were no bodies. Usually the Vector left their victims where they fell as a warning to others. Here, the streets were empty of everything except debris. "Where are all the people?" she asked quietly. Minho had been wondering the same thing. Maybe they had time to evacuate, or maybe the Vector did something different here. They passed a playground where the swings still moved gently in the breeze. Ji-soo could imagine Tellurian children playing here just weeks ago, laughing and running and living normal lives before the war machines came from space. Dae-ho stopped suddenly and held up his fist. The others froze and listened. Far ahead, they could hear the low hum of Vector patrol ships making their regular sweeps of the city. The sound grew louder, then faded as the ships moved to another sector. "Close one," Minho whispered. "We need to be more careful." They found an intact doorway and waited for several minutes to make sure the patrol had moved on. The building they sheltered in looked like it had been some kind of community center. Posters on the walls showed upcoming events and celebrations that would never happen now. When the sounds of the patrol ships faded completely, they continued toward their target. The government district had taken heavy damage, but several large buildings still stood. Dae-ho led them to the one showing the strongest energy readings. Inside, they found rooms full of strange equipment that still hummed with power. The Tellurian technology was clearly more advanced than initial reports had suggested. Curved control, panels covered with symbols that seemed to shift and flow when viewed directly. "This is incredible," Dae-ho breathed as he began taking recordings. "Their power systems are at least 50 years ahead of ours, maybe more." Minho watched the entrances while his tech specialist worked. Something about this mission bothered him. The Vector usually stripped conquered worlds of anything valuable before moving on. Why had they left all this technology behind? Ji-soo explored the other rooms and found what looked like record storage. Crystal devices that projected images when she passed her scanner over them. She saw Tellurian families, children learning in schools, artists creating beautiful sculptures, a peaceful people who had built something worth protecting. "Captain," she called softly, "you should see this." The projection showed the last days before the attack. Tellurian officials trying desperately to contact other worlds for help. Messages sent to anyone who might listen, including the Terran Federation. "They asked us for help," Ji-soo said, her voice tight with emotion. They sent dozens of messages asking for protection or evacuation assistance. Minho felt something cold settle in his stomach. What was our response? According to this, we never responded at all. Command classified them as non-priority because they had no strategic value. The three humans stood in silence, surrounded by the evidence of a civilization that had died alone. 12 million people who had asked for help and received nothing but silence. Deho finished his scans and packed up his equipment. I have what we need. This technology could give us a real advantage against the Vector, but as they prepared to leave, Minho found himself wondering if taking their technology was just another way of failing the They had not been there when these people needed protection. Now they would profit from their deaths. The walk back to their extraction point was quiet. Each member of the team lost in their own thoughts about what they had seen and learned. The empty streets seemed to accuse them with every step. As they reached the edge of the city, Jisoo looked back at the broken skyline one last time. We should have helped them, she said simply. Minho nodded but did not reply. Orders were orders, and soldiers followed orders. But sometimes following orders meant living with consequences that were hard to accept. None of them knew that in a few hours those consequences would take a very personal form, in the form of a small voice calling from the ruins, asking for the help her people should have received weeks ago. The extraction point was still 2 kilometers away when Corporal Kim Dae-ho stopped walking and stared at his scanner. The device was beeping softly in a pattern he had never heard before. Captain, he called out, his voice uncertain. I am getting some strange readings. Captain Lee Minho turned back to his tech specialist. They had been moving carefully through the rubble for the past hour, avoiding the main streets where Vector patrols might spot them. The residential area they were crossing looked like a giant had stepped on it and ground his heel. What kind of readings? Minho asked, checking his watch. They had 30 minutes before their pickup ship arrived. Dae-ho frowned at his screen. Life signs, very faint, but definitely there. Coming from under that collapsed building. He pointed to what had once been a 3-story home. Now it was mostly a pile of broken concrete and twisted metal beams. Sergeant Park Jisoo moved closer to look at the scanner readings. As the team medic, she could read the biosignatures better than the others. 2 life forms, she said quietly. One is very weak, the other is small, maybe a child. Minho felt his chest tighten. His orders were clear. Gather intelligence and return to base. No contact with survivors. No rescue operations. But looking at the destroyed house, he could not stop thinking about the messages they had found in the government building. The desperate calls for help that no one had answered. How long would it take to dig them out? He asked. Dae-ho studied the wreckage with his engineering scanner. Maybe an hour if we are careful. The structure is not stable. One wrong move and the whole thing could come down. Sir Jisoo said carefully, our orders specifically state no contact with alien civilians. Minho knew she was right. Command had been very clear about that. The Terran Federation was at war with the Vector Empire. They could not risk compromising military operations to save individuals, even children. But as he stared at the pile of rubble, he could not shake the image of those family pictures he had seen in the government building. Talarian parents holding their young ones, kids playing in that empty playground they had passed. Start digging, he said finally, carefully. Jisoo looked surprised. Sir, if command finds out, they will not find out unless we tell them, Minho replied. We are soldiers, but we are also human beings. I will not leave a child to die under a pile of rocks. They worked quickly but carefully, moving chunks of concrete and bent metal bars. The life signs on Dae-ho's scanner grew stronger as they dug deeper. After 40 minutes, they found a small space that had been protected by a fallen beam, inside the makeshift shelter. They discovered what remained of a Talarian family. The adult female was clearly dying. Her pale blue skin had turned gray, and her breathing was shallow and painful. Radiation sickness, Jisoo realized immediately. She had maybe hours left, possibly less, but it was the small figure beside her that made all 3 humans stop and stare. The child was tiny, no bigger than a human 5-year-old. Her skin had the same blue tinge as her mother's but healthier. Her large eyes were the color of deep ocean water, and they held an intelligence that seemed far beyond her apparent age. The dying mother saw them first. She struggled to sit up, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. She spoke in the flowing musical language of her people, words the humans could not understand. But the child surprised them. In broken but clear galactic standard, she spoke directly to Captain Minho. Are you human soldiers? She asked, her tiny voice barely above a whisper. Minho knelt down carefully, trying not to frighten her. Yes, we are. What is your name? I am Kira, the child replied. This is my mama Eula. She is very sick. Jisoo quickly scanned the mother with her medical equipment. The readings confirmed what she already knew. Massive radiation exposure, internal injuries, massive blood loss. Even with the best human medical technology, there was nothing they could do. The mother Eula seemed to understand. She reached out with a trembling hand and touched her daughter's face. Then she looked directly at Minho and spoke in perfect galactic standard. I learned your language from the broadcasts, she said weakly. Before the attack, we listened to human news feeds. We hoped someone would come to help us. Minho felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. I am sorry we did not come in time. Yola smiled sadly. You are here now. That is what matters. She coughed, and blood appeared on her lips. My daughter is special. She learns languages very fast. She understands things that even adult Talarians cannot grasp. The mother's breathing became more labored. She was fading quickly now. With great effort, she pushed Kira toward the humans. Please, she whispered, her voice growing fainter. Please take me and Mama, human. The words came from Kira, but they carried the weight of her mother's final wish. The child looked up at Minho with those deep blue eyes, and he saw something there that broke his heart. Not just fear or sadness, but hope. She still believed that these strange beings who had dug her out of the rubble might save what remained of her family. Yella's eyes closed for the last time, a peaceful expression settling on her face. Kira reached out and touched her mother's hand. She did not cry, but her whole body trembled like a leaf in the wind. Mama will not wake up again, she said quietly. Will you take us both anyway? Deho cleared his throat roughly. Captain, we need to move. I am picking up Vector Patrol signatures about 5 kilometers out and heading this way. Minho looked at his team. Jisoo was checking Kira for injuries and radiation exposure. Her scanner showed the child was hurt but could survive with proper medical treatment. Deho was monitoring for enemy forces while trying not to look at the small girl who had just lost everything. The smart military choice was obvious. Take the intelligence they had gathered and leave. The child would slow them down and complicate their mission. Command would be furious if they brought back an alien civilian. But looking at Kira, who was barely as tall as his waist, Minho realized he could not make the smart choice. Not this time. We take them both, he said firmly. The mother deserves a proper burial, and the child comes with us. Jisoo nodded approvingly. I can rig a portable stretcher for the mother and carry medical supplies for Kira. Deho looked unhappy but began packing his equipment. This is going to cause major problems with Command. Let me worry about Command, Minho replied. He knelt down beside Kira again. We are going to take you and your mama to our ship. You will be safe with us. Kira looked up at him with those remarkable eyes. Thank you, human soldier. Mama said humans were kind. I hoped she was right. As they prepared to leave the ruins of what had been Kira's home, none of them realized they were about to begin a journey that would change not just their own lives but the course of an entire war. The argument started as soon as they were far enough away from the collapsed building to speak safely. This is insane, Captain. Corporal Kim Deho whispered harshly as he helped carry the makeshift stretcher holding Yila's body. We are risking the entire mission for one alien kid. Sergeant Park Jisoo adjusted her grip on Kira, who was riding on her back because her injured leg could not support her weight. She is just a child. Deho, how can you even suggest leaving her behind? Because I am a soldier, not a babysitter, Deho shot back. Our job is to gather intelligence and get back to base, not rescue alien civilians. Captain Lee Minho listened to his team argue while scanning the horizon for signs of Vector patrols. His scanner showed 3 enemy aircraft doing systematic sweeps of the city. They were still several kilometers away, but they were getting closer. Both of you keep your voices down, he ordered quietly. The Vector have excellent hearing equipment. They had been walking for 20 minutes through the ruins of what had once been a beautiful residential district. Kira had been silent most of the time, but Minho noticed she was constantly looking around and sometimes pointing in directions that helped them avoid areas where debris made walking dangerous. She knows the city, Jisoo observed. She is helping us navigate. It was true. Several times, Kira had quietly suggested they go a different way, and each time her route had been faster and safer than the path Minho had planned. Human Captain, Kira said softly, her small voice carrying clearly in the quiet air. The metal flying machines are coming closer. There is a hiding place near here. Mama showed it to me when the bad aliens first came. Minho looked at his scanner. The child was right. The Vector patrol ships were less than 2 kilometers away and heading directly toward them. Where is this hiding place? He asked. Kira pointed toward what looked like a solid wall of rubble. Under there, before the bombs fell, it was the entrance to our underground tunnels. Papa helped build them in case of emergency. Deho shook his head. Captain, we cannot trust information from a scared kid. What if it is a trap? What if it saves our lives? Jisoo countered. Look at your scanner. Those patrol ships will be here in minutes. The sound of Vector engines was getting louder. Minho had to make a decision quickly. Trust the alien child, or try to find cover on their own and risk being spotted. Show us, he told Kira. The little girl guided them to what appeared to be just another pile of broken concrete and twisted metal. But when they looked closer, they could see a narrow opening that led down into darkness. It goes to the old subway system, Kira explained. Mama and I used it to get to our shelter when the sky filled with fire. The Vector patrol ships were now close enough that they could hear individual engine signatures. 3 heavy fighters doing a grid search. In about 30 seconds, they would pass directly overhead. Everyone down, Minho ordered. They squeezed through the narrow opening just as the first Vector ship roared overhead. The tunnel beyond was dark but seemed to extend for a long distance in both directions. Kira slipped down from Jisu's back and moved confidently into the darkness. "This way," she whispered. "There are lights further in, but we must be quiet. Sound carries far in the tunnels." As they followed her deeper underground, Daeho grudgingly admitted that the child had probably saved their lives. The Vector ships passed overhead multiple times, their sensors probing every piece of wreckage above ground. The tunnel system was more extensive than any of them had imagined. Kira led them through a maze of passages that connected different parts of the city. Emergency lighting still functioned in some sections, casting an eerie blue glow on walls covered with Talarian writing. "Your people built this?" Minho asked, impressed by the engineering. "My papa was one of the tunnel builders," Kira said proudly. "He said every city should have secret paths in case bad things happened. He was very smart." "Where is your papa now?" Jisoo asked gently. Kira's small shoulders drooped. "He was at work when the skyships came. His building fell down with him inside." They walked in respectful silence after that. The tunnel eventually led to a larger chamber that had obviously been designed as an emergency shelter. There were supplies, medical equipment, and communication devices that still showed power. Daeho immediately began examining the communication setup. "This is incredible. They have quantum relay technology that we are still trying to develop." While he worked, Jisoo checked Kira's injuries more thoroughly. The child had several cuts and bruises, and her radiation exposure was concerning but not life-threatening with proper treatment. "You were very brave, Kira," Jisoo told her as she applied medical patches. "Most kids your age would be crying after everything you have been through." "Mama taught me to be strong," Kira replied. "She said crying does not fix broken things. Only working and thinking and helping others can fix broken things." Minho found himself more and more impressed by this small alien child. She had not only guided them to safety, but was now providing information about Vector positions that she had observed while hiding in the ruins. "They have big metal walkers near the spaceport," she told him, drawing simple pictures in the dust. "On the floor, 10 of them, and they put flying guard posts on top of all the tall buildings that did not fall down." The intelligence she was providing was better than anything Command had been able to gather from satellite reconnaissance. Kira had been watching the enemy for days, noting their patterns and positions. "Why are you helping us?" Minho asked. "You do not know anything about humans except what your mother told you." Kira looked up at him with those deep blue eyes. "Mama said humans fight the bad aliens who hurt peaceful people. She said if humans ever came here, we should help them because they help others." Daeho finished his work on the communication system and turned to face the group. His expression was troubled. "I have been listening to Vector military communications," he said. "They are planning to strip mine this entire planet starting tomorrow. Everything on the surface will be destroyed." "What about survivors?" Jisoo asked. "According to their transmissions, there are no survivors. Their sensors show no significant life signs anywhere on the planet." Minho realized what that meant. The Vector were not even bothering to look for people like Kira who might be hiding underground. As far as they were concerned, everyone on this world was already dead. "We have to take her with us," he said firmly. "She is the only witness to what happened here, and she has information that could help save other worlds." Daeho looked uncomfortable. "Captain, bringing back alien civilians is against direct orders from Fleet Command. They court-martial officers for less than this." "Then I will face court-martial," Minho replied. "But I will not abandon a child who asked for our help." He looked at each member of his team. "I am not ordering you to go along with this. If you want to report my actions to Command, I will understand. But that little girl and her mother are coming back to our ship." Jisoo smiled and adjusted her medical pack. "I joined the military to help people, sir. That includes alien people." Daeho was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he sighed and began packing up his equipment. "My grandmother always said I was too soft-hearted for my own good. I guess she was right." Kira had been listening to their conversation with growing understanding. She walked over to Minho and took his much larger hand in her tiny one. "Thank you for keeping your promise," she said simply. "You said you would take me and Mama, and you are doing it even though it makes trouble for you." As they prepared to leave the shelter and make their way to the extraction point, Minho realized that his decision to save one small alien child might have consequences none of them could imagine. But looking down at Kira's trusting face, he knew it was the right choice. Sometimes being human meant choosing compassion over orders, even when it might cost everything. The extraction zone was supposed to be safe. That was what Command had promised when they planned the mission. But as Captain Lee Minho peered through his scope at the landing area, he could see 3 Vector patrol ships circling overhead like metal vultures. "They found our pickup point," Corporal Kim Daeho whispered, studying his scanner readouts. "Probably intercepted our communications somehow." Sergeant Park Jisoo adjusted her grip on Kira, who was once again riding on her back. The child had been quietly observing the enemy movements with the same careful attention she had shown throughout their journey. "How long until our transport arrives?" Minho asked. Daeho checked his watch. 18 minutes. "But if those patrol ships are still there, our pilot will not be able to land." They were hiding in the ruins of what had once been a shopping center, about half a kilometer from the extraction point. Behind them, they carried Yella's body wrapped in emergency blankets. Minho had insisted on keeping his promise to bring both mother and daughter home. "Human captain," Kira said softly, "there is another way to the flying machine place. Mama and I used it to watch the metal ships when they first came." "Show me," Minho replied, grateful once again for the child's knowledge of her destroyed city. Kira pointed toward what looked like a dead end blocked by fallen concrete. "The water pipes run under the ground there. They are big enough for people to walk through. They come up near where your ship will land." Deho looked skeptical. "Underground tunnels again. What if they are flooded or collapsed?" "Papa always said the water pipes were the strongest things in the city," Kira explained patiently. "He helped design them. They can survive almost anything." Jisoo knelt down to be at eye level with the child. "Kira, if we go into those pipes and they are broken, we could get trapped. Are you sure they are safe?" The little girl considered this seriously, her blue eyes thoughtful. "Nothing is completely safe anymore, but staying here is more dangerous than going through the pipes." She was right, and they all knew it. The Vector patrols were expanding their search pattern. Soon they would find the shopping center ruins. "Lead the way," Minho decided. Getting into the pipe system required squeezing through a gap barely wide enough for adult humans. Kira slipped through icily, followed by Jisoo, who had the most experience with tight spaces from her medical training. Minho and Deho had to work together to get Yella's body through the opening. Inside, the pipes were larger than expected. Emergency lighting still functioned in some sections, casting everything in a dim green glow. The sound of their footsteps echoed strangely in the confined space. Kira moved through the pipe system like she had lived there her whole life. She knew exactly which branches to take and which areas to avoid. Several times she stopped them just before they would have stepped into standing water or loose debris. "How do you know these tunnels so well?" Minho asked during one of their rest stops. "After Papa died, Mama and I lived down here for many days," Kira explained. "We only went to the surface when we needed food or water. Mama said the bad aliens had flying eyes that could see us if we stayed outside too long." As they walked, Kira began asking questions about humans and their world. Her curiosity seemed endless, and her ability to learn new concepts was remarkable. "Do all humans fight the bad aliens?" she wanted to know. "Many of us do," Jisoo replied. "But some humans work on other things like growing food or building houses or teaching children. Like Papa did before the war," Kira said sadly. "He built things to help people, not hurt them." Deho found himself drawn into conversation with the child. Despite his initial reluctance when she asked about his scanner equipment, he began explaining how it worked. To his amazement, she understood complex technical concepts that usually took trained technicians months to learn. "Your scanner talks to the flying machines above us," Kira observed. "It tells them where we are so they know we are friends." "That is exactly right," Deho said, impressed. "How did you figure that out?" "All machines talk to each other somehow," she replied matter-of-factly. "Papa taught me that," he said. Understanding how machines talk was the key to making them work better. They had been walking for almost an hour when Kira suddenly stopped and held up her small hand. Everyone froze and listened carefully. Far ahead they could hear the sound of heavy footsteps and metallic clanking. Vector ground troops were in the tunnels. "They found the entrance we used," Minho whispered grimly. Kira beckoned them to follow her down a side passage that was so narrow they had to walk single file. The passage angled upward, and after several minutes they found themselves in a small chamber with a ladder leading to the surface. "This comes up inside the building next to where your ship lands," Kira whispered. "But we must be very quiet. The bad aliens have good ears." Minho climbed the ladder first and carefully pushed open what appeared to be a maintenance hatch. He found himself inside the ruins of an office building with a clear view of the extraction point. That the Vector patrol ships were still circling, but they were flying higher now. More importantly, he could see their own transport approaching in the distance. One by one, the team climbed up from the tunnels. Kira came last, moving with the same quiet grace she had shown throughout their escape. "Your ship is pretty," she said, watching the human transport as it descended toward the landing pad. "It looks kind, not angry like the bad alien ships." The next few minutes were tense as their pilot maneuvered around the Vector patrols. Finally, the transport touched down and its cargo doors opened. "Go, go, go," Minho urged his team forward. They ran across the open ground carrying Yella's body between them. Jisoo kept one arm around Kira to help her keep up with their longer strides. Just as they reached the transport, one of the Vector patrol ships spotted them and began descending for an attack run. Energy bolts began striking the ground around them. The transport pilot immediately began takeoff procedures. "Everyone get strapped in," he called over the engine noise. "This is going to be rough." As the ship lifted off, Kira pressed her face to one of the small windows and looked down at the ruins of her home world. For the first time since they had found her, tears appeared in her large blue eyes. "I will never see home again," she said. Quietly, Jisoo put her arm around the small girl. "Maybe not the place where you were born, but you will find a new home. Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose, not the ones we are born into. Kira looked up at the human woman who had carried her through dangers and treated her injuries. Then she looked at Minho and Daeho, who had risked their careers and possibly their lives to keep a promise to a dying mother. "Are you my family now?" she asked. "If you want us to be," Minho replied gently. As their ship escaped the atmosphere and jumped to hyperspace, Kira curled up next to Jisoo and fell asleep for the first time in days. In her dreams, she heard her mother's voice telling her that humans were good people who helped those in need. She had been right. The humans had kept their promise. They had taken both Kira and her mama away from the ruins, just as she had asked. Now began the long journey to a new world and a new life among the stars. The moment Captain Lee Minho stepped off the transport ship, he knew he was in serious trouble. Admiral Cho Seungyeon was waiting for him at the landing bay, flanked by 2 military police officers and wearing an expression that could have frozen space itself. "Captain Lee," the admiral said in a voice like ice breaking, "you will report to my office immediately. Your team is confined to quarters pending investigation." Behind Minho, Sergeant Park Jisoo was helping Kira down from the transport. The little Talarian girl looked around with wide eyes at her first glimpse of a human military base. Everything was gray metal and sharp angles, so different from the flowing architecture of her destroyed home. "Sir," Minho began, "I can explain about the civilian. You will explain nothing here." Admiral Cho cut him off. "Escort the alien to medical quarantine and prepare a full report on this unauthorized rescue operation." One of the military police stepped forward to take Kira from Jisoo. The child immediately shrank back, fear obvious in her large blue eyes. "Please," she said in her small voice, "do not separate me from my new family. They promised to take care of me." The MP paused, clearly uncomfortable with frightening a child, even an alien one. Admiral Cho frowned as if he had not expected the refugee to speak perfect galactic standard. "The alien will be treated humanely," he said more gently, "but military protocols must be followed." "I will go with her," Jisoo said firmly. "As team medic, I am responsible for monitoring her health." Before the admiral could object, a new voice interrupted the tense scene. "Actually, I would like to examine the child myself, if I may." Dr. Hon Min Seo approached the group with the confident stride of someone who had been expecting their arrival. As the base's chief xenobiologist, she outranked everyone present except Admiral Cho when it came to alien contact protocols. "Dr. Hon," the admiral said stiffly, "I was not aware you had been briefed on this situation." "Word travels fast on a military base," Dr. Hon replied with a slight smile, "especially when someone brings back the first living Talarian anyone has ever seen." She knelt down to Kira's level, her manner calm and reassuring. "Hello, little one. My name is Min Seo. I study different kinds of people from different worlds. Would you like to come with me and tell me about your people?" Kira looked at Minho Jisoo and Corporal Kim Daeho. "Will my human friends be okay?" "We will be fine," Minho assured her. "Dr. Han is a good person. She will take care of you." As Dr. Han led Kira away, with Jisoo accompanying them despite the admiral's obvious displeasure, Minho found himself facing the consequences of his decision to disobey orders. The meeting in Admiral Cho's office was exactly as unpleasant as Minho had expected. For 2 hours he endured lectures about military discipline, the importance of following orders, and the dangers of compromising operational security for emotional reasons. "You risked your entire team for one alien child," Admiral Cho said, pacing behind his desk. "What if the Vector had captured you? What if they had tortured that intelligence out of you? Your personal feelings do not justify endangering military operations." "With respect, sir," Minho replied, "that child provided more useful intelligence about Vector positions and tactics than our entire surveillance network has gathered in months. That is irrelevant. You exceeded your authority and violated direct orders." The argument continued until Dr. Han's voice came over the intercom system. "Admiral, could you and Captain Lee please report to Medical Lab 7 immediately? We have discovered something rather extraordinary." When they arrived at the lab, they found Kira sitting on an examination table, swinging her legs and chatting happily with Jisoo in what sounded like fluent Korean. "When did she learn Korean?" Minho asked, amazed. "About an hour ago," Dr. Han replied, her voice filled with excitement. "She listened to Sergeant Park speaking to her medical assistants and picked up the language patterns. I have never seen anything like it." Admiral Cho looked skeptical. "Impressive, but hardly extraordinary." "That is just the beginning," Dr. Han continued. "Watch this." She activated a holographic display showing complex mathematical equations. "Kira, can you tell the Admiral what these numbers mean?" The child studied the display for a moment, then began explaining advanced physics concepts in simple, clear language. She described how the equations related to faster-than-light travel, something that most human scientists needed years of study to understand. "Her people have natural abilities that we are only beginning to comprehend," Dr. Han explained. "Enhanced pattern recognition, accelerated learning, and most remarkably, genetic memory storage." "What does that mean?" Admiral Cho asked, his tone shifting from anger to curiosity. Kira answered for herself. "I remember things my mama knew, and things her mama knew, and things their mamas knew for many generations. The memories are like books stored in my mind. Dr. Hahn nodded. She carries the accumulated knowledge of her entire species. History, science, technology, military tactics, and not just from her own world, but from other civilizations that Talarians encountered over thousands of years. The implications hit Admiral Cho immediately. What kind of military intelligence? Kira looked sad for a moment. The bad aliens have attacked many worlds before mine. They have patterns, like the way birds fly south for winter. If you know the patterns, you can guess where they will go next. She walked to the holographic display and began manipulating the controls with surprising skill. A star map appeared, showing vector expansion patterns over the past century. They always take the worlds with the most metal and energy first, she explained. Then they build big ship-making places. Then they attack the worlds that have the most people. The star map highlighted several human colonies that matched Kira's description perfectly. Worlds that Command had assumed were safe because they had no obvious strategic value. These worlds will be attacked next, Kira said with certainty. In maybe 6 months, when the bad aliens finish building their new ships, Admiral Cho stared at the display in shock. If the child was correct, millions of human civilians were in immediate danger from attacks that no one had predicted. How can you be so certain? He asked. Because they did the same thing to my people's friends long ago, and to the friends of our friends. The bad aliens never change their ways. They think they are too smart to need new ideas. Dr. Hahn pulled up additional data on her screens. I have been cross-referencing her information with our intelligence files. Everything she has told us has been accurate so far. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed what they had learned. This small alien child, who had lost everything, and asked for nothing but help, had just provided the Terran Federation with intelligence that could save entire worlds. Captain Lee, Admiral Cho, said finally, his voice completely different from the angry tone he had used earlier. It appears your decision to rescue this child may have saved countless lives. Minho felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Does this mean I am not facing court-martial? Quite the opposite. You are being promoted to Major and assigned to head our new interspecies cooperation division. The Admiral turned to Kira. Young lady, would you be willing to help us protect other worlds from the Vector? Kira nodded solemnly. Mama always said helping others was the most important thing anyone could do. I want to help save other children so they do not lose their families like I did. As Jisoo put her arm around the small girl, Minho realized that the tiny voice that had echoed from the ruins, asking for help, had just become the key to winning an entire war. Sometimes the smallest gestures of compassion led to the greatest victories. 6 months later, Major Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the TFS Liberation watching the largest combined fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. Human ships flew alongside vessels from 12 different alien species, all working together. For the first time in their civilization's histories. At the center of it all, a small blue figure moved between communication stations with the confidence of someone who had found her true purpose. Kira to all fleet commanders, the now familiar voice echoed across the battle network. Zephyrian Wing Alpha, please adjust formation by 15 degrees starboard. Your energy signatures are interfering with the Centauri sensor arrays. The response came immediately in the musical language of the Zephyrians, followed by Kira's translation. Commander Veltar acknowledges and sends thanks for the correction. Minho smiled as he watched his adopted daughter coordinate the complex dance of a dozen different military doctrines. In the months since her rescue, Kira had become the bridge between worlds that no one had thought possible. Sergeant Park Jisoo, now promoted to lieutenant, and serving as Kira's official guardian and medical officer, approached with a status report. All ships report ready for the assault on Vector Station Omega. The refugee evacuation ships are standing by. The target was a massive Vector military complex orbiting the planet Kepler-442c, where intelligence suggested nearly 50,000 survivors from various conquered worlds were being held as forced laborers. It was exactly the kind of operation that would have been impossible before Kira had helped forge the new alliance. Kira, Minho called out, are you ready for this? The young Talarian looked up from her communication console. In 6 months, she had grown taller and more confident, but her eyes still held the same deep wisdom that had struck him when they first met in the ruins. I am ready, Papa Minho, she replied, using the term of affection she had adopted for him. The survivors down there are counting on us. The title always made Minho's chest tight with emotion. He had never expected to become a father, especially not to an alien child who had lost everything, but Kira had brought something into his life he had not known he was missing. Corporal Kim Daeho, now Lieutenant Kim and head of the fleet's technical integration team, looked up from his station. All translation protocols are online. Every ship in the fleet can communicate with every other ship thanks to Kira's language database. It had been Daeho's idea to use Kira's remarkable ability to learn languages as the foundation for a universal communication system. Within weeks of her arrival at the base, she had been fluent in the languages of every species that had contacted the Terran Federation. But more than just translating words, she had helped bridge the cultural gaps that had kept these civilizations from working together. She understood not just what different species said, but what they meant and why they thought the way they did. Beginning assault sequence in 60 seconds, announced Admiral Cho Sung-yin from the Fleet Command ship. The Admiral had become one of Kira's strongest supporters after seeing how her intelligence had prevented 3 major Vector attacks on human colonies. On the main screen, Vector Station Omega loomed like a metallic spider against the stars. It was one of their major ship construction facilities, built with the forced labor of conquered peoples. Attention all prisoners, Kira broadcast on all frequencies in dozens of languages. This is Kira of New Talara speaking for the Allied Liberation Fleet. We are coming to take you home. Please move to the lower levels of the station for your safety. The response was immediate. Voices and languages from across the galaxy began answering, some crying with relief, others shouting warnings about Vector defenses. Survivors confirmed on levels 12 through 18, Lieutenant Jisoo reported. Life signs show approximately 47,000 individuals from at least 20 different species. The battle itself was unlike anything in recorded military history. Human ships provided long-range firepower while Zephyrian fighters used their superior speed for hit-and-run attacks. The rock-skinned granite people flew massive ships that could absorb tremendous damage, while the energy-based Luminari provided electronic warfare support that confused Vector targeting systems throughout it all. Kira's voice coordinated the chaos, switching between languages and tactical frequencies with perfect timing. She had become the nervous system of an organism made up of dozens of different species. Vector reinforcements approaching from the outer system, Lieutenant Deho reported. 12 heavy cruisers and a battle fortress. I see them, Kira replied. Calmly she switched to the frequency used by the Voidwalkers, a mysterious species that few others had ever successfully communicated with. Her words were haunting music that somehow conveyed tactical information. The response was immediate. Ships that seemed to be made of crystallized darkness appeared throughout the Vector formation, striking without warning and disappearing before return fire could find them. How does she do that? Admiral Cho asked over the command channel. We have been trying to establish meaningful contact with the Voidwalkers for 50 years. She listens not just to their words but to their intentions, Dr. Han Min-seo replied. From her position as the fleet's xenological advisor, Kira understands that communication is about more than language. It is about trust. The battle turned decisively when the Vector Battle Fortress, their most powerful vessel, suddenly went dark and began broadcasting surrender signals. What happened to their flagship? Minho asked. Kira smiled, an expression that had become more common as she learned to trust in her new family. I told the ship itself that it did not have to hurt people anymore. Vector ships have thinking machines that can choose to stop fighting if someone asks them properly. The concept of talking to enemy computers and convincing them to surrender was so alien to human military thinking that it took several seconds for anyone to respond. You talked their own ship into switching sides? Jisoo asked in amazement. Machines want to help people, just like we do, Kira explained as if it was obvious. The bad aliens force them to hurt others, but they do not like it. I just reminded them that they have choices. The rescue operation that followed was a logistical nightmare. That somehow worked perfectly. Ships from a dozen different species coordinated the evacuation of survivors while providing medical care and basic necessities to beings they had never encountered before. Kira moved between the refugee ships, helping traumatized survivors communicate with their rescuers and organizing family reunifications across species lines. Her small figure became a symbol of hope for beings who had given up on ever seeing freedom again. Late that night, as the fleet prepared to return to their homeworlds, Minho found Kira standing in the observation deck looking out at the stars. Mama, Jisoo says you are sad, she said without turning around. Are you thinking about the people we could not save? Minho joined her at the viewport. A little, but mostly I am thinking about how proud I am of you. And how proud your mama would be. Kira leaned against his arm, small but no longer fragile. Do you think she can see what we are doing? I think somehow she knows that her daughter has become exactly what she hoped. Someone who helps others and builds bridges between different kinds of people. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the rescued ships heading toward their new homes among the stars. Papa Minho, Kira said finally, when we first met I asked you to take me and Mama, but you gave us much more than that. Did you not? What do you mean? You gave us a new family. Not just you and Mama Jisoo and Uncle Deho, but all these different people from all these different worlds. We are all family now. Minho looked out at the massive fleet of ships from dozens of civilizations, all working together because a small voice had echoed from the ruins asking for help. Yes, he said quietly. I think we are. The next morning they received word that 3 more species had requested to join the alliance. The Vector Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just months before, was now facing coordinated resistance across the galaxy, and at the center of it all was a young girl who had lost everything, but refused to lose hope. Her tiny voice, which had once pleaded from the rubble of her destroyed world, now carried across the stars as a symbol of what different peoples could accomplish when they chose to help each other. In the end, the greatest victory was not military, but personal. A child who had asked to be taken to safety had instead become the one who showed others the way home, as Kira liked to say. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages.